people say the hardest season in business is when you're at zero. I actually think when you're in between your goal, because you're like, okay, I shouldn't quit because I have been successful in the past, but I'm currently not successful right now. I think that's the hardest part in business, where you have the past, but the future is looking a little bleak. A lot can change when you know how to do a sales call. A lot can change. That was that part where I was doing the 20K month. That's when I finally clicked into, oh, I have to do the sales call this way. I have to do it that way. Oh, I need to say this. And then time isn't the problem. So if you're like, oh, I don't have enough time, and time isn't the problem, you are.
Yeah, they always say choose your hard, right?
Very
Either
true.
way, it's going to be hard, but pick which one you want, right?
Welcome back to the Art of Online Business podcast. You should be able to see next to me, Jamie,
Hi.
who is no longer the new co-host. She's been a co-host for a while here, but Facebook Ads Manager in my business behind the scenes. And then you can also see Dielle Charon.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
Welcome, Dielle.
Thank you for being here. I thought I would read your bio and then we would jump into this first episode. I secretly am very happy that you are going to be sharing with us on sales because, well, sales is something that we all need to get good at. And I love picking the brain of sales specialists. How do you refer to yourself, actually? I'm curious.
A sales coach. Very
A sales
simple.
coach?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Not a sales specialist, not a guru.
No guru.
So, sorry, guru is a swear word. DL, MSW, which can you explain what that means?
Master's in social work.
So you went from having a master's in social work to being a certified life coach and 7-figure sales expert for women of color coaches. Congratulations, by the way. I saw your post on Instagram and you have 3 years in running of grossing over $1 million in revenue in your business. That is huge.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. I think equally noteworthy is the fact that you have served over 300 women in your programs, the 5-figure freedom sales program and the 6-figure liberation sales program. You're the host of the Women of Color Sales Show podcast with over $150,000, with over 150,000 downloads, and that also is noteworthy. Thank you for spending some time with us.
I'm super excited to be here. I love talking about all things sales, business, online business. I'm pumped.
Cool. Well, let's start
Mhm.
off with a snapshot of your business as it stands. I would like to know a little bit about your offers. You said before we hit record, you're comfortable with sharing revenue. So please share that for the listener before we jump back in time and see how you pulled all of this off.
Sure. So over this past year, 2024, we did 1.3 million cash collected, about 1.7. Yeah, yes.
Golf clap.
About 1.7 receivable sales, and so some money coming into 2025. And we did that primarily with 3 main offers. So 5-figure freedom, where we charge $5,000 for that offer at the beginning of the year. And then in June, it went down to 2,500. We lowered the price, and happy to share more about our reasons for that. And then I also have another mastermind called 6-Figure Liberation. That's $15,000. So a big jump. So $2,500 program and then a $15,000 mastermind. And so those are our main 2 offers. I did 5 launches that year. And so lots of live launching. And I also did some evergreen backdoor selling as well. That was really fun. I have a few, courses or one-off things. I experimented a little bit with Black Friday. I also have some intensives for people that are like, I don't want group, I want one-on-one from you. And so I have those. Those are maybe total about $50,000 of my revenue. So nothing significant, not even 10%. But I do just want to name, like, I do have that little bit of an income stream, but my main offers are 5-figure freedom, 6-figure liberation that I just described, and then the emancipation experience, which is my live event, my sales and wealth conference for women of color coaches. And so we have that every April. And so that is our big conference. We're currently gearing up for emancipation season right now. And so I'm super excited. But those are my offers and how I've done it.
Wow.
Wow.
Can you share a little bit about, well, which offer makes up the most significant revenue? I might have missed that. Is it the 5-figure freedom one or the 6-figure liberation?
6-figure liberation, but by a hair. So maybe that makes up about 55% of my income. And then the second one would be 5-figure freedom. The third one would be emancipation. And then the fourth would be those miscellaneous offers.
I would love it if you could
Mhm.
describe your typical client that's in each of those programs? The two, five-figure freedom and six-figure liberation.
Sure. So, Five Figure Freedom, my number one webinar that I have for that offer, and it really just encapsulates the energy and the type of client called Quit Your Racist Job. So, the person who is a woman of color.
That is a statement.
Yeah, that's a bold, yeah.
Yeah, so it's funny, I get that feedback all like, so bold and strong. It's literally just, like, my core belief because that was my story. I had a racist 9 to 5 job that there was no way I could build wealth in and have freedom in, and so that's what I created Five Figure Freedom for, is that person who is inside of their 9 to 5 job. They're super smart, they have all these goals of being a first generation wealth builder, Black women, Latino women. I have a very diverse community, and they can't do it in a 9 to 5 job, so they want to start a coaching business, which in my opinion is the easiest business to start. And so that offer will help people from zero to quitting their job become full-time coaches. We've had hundreds and hundreds of examples, and on our sales page, so many people have been able to do that. It's a party in there. It's so fun and it's so healing too. So many people just, just seeing them make their first money outside of a paycheck is just one, like, I think it's my life's work. It's so healing. So that's the ideal client inside of Five Figure Freedom. I would say more tactically, they maybe have dabbled into coaching before. They might have a niche. So they might be like, okay, I want to be a money coach, or okay, I want to be a health and wellness coach, or okay, I want to be a mom coach. I want moms to have less overwhelm. They typically have a niche, but they're struggling on the sales front. They're struggling with content, with sales calls. I love sales calls. That's one of my bread and butters. I love teaching sales calls and helping people master a strong, ethical sales call. And so those skills will get them to that full time income. So that's Five Figure Freedom. And then for Six Figure Liberation, we have an income requirement for that offer, which is $50,000. And we chose $50,000 to kind of connote that at least you know how to feed yourself, you know how to keep a roof over your head. So it's not the program for beginners. And so we have that $50,000 requirement there. But for those coaches, they want to have a six-figure launch. So we teach launching and scaling in that offer. And so my message, quote unquote, for that offer is like staying small is racist. A lot of women of color, they will quit their job and then they'll stop. They'll plateau. They won't grow anymore for several reasons. It could be, oh, I don't want to get haters, or oh, I don't think I can manage a large group. And so, what we say all the time is staying small is racist. You don't have to just keep the little bit of full-time income you have. You can create $1 million business. And so I've been able to help several people hit figures as well, which is super exciting too. And so yeah, that's kind of the difference between the two offers and who they're best for.
That is something that I hear when I interview guests on this show. We talk about six figures, we talk about seven figures, and like it's just so intriguing to me, especially in the context of our conversation where you serve primarily women of color, where we're talking about six figures and seven figures as if it's normal to like teach people to make that much and have people make that much when like if you're a seven figure earner gross, um, doesn't that put you in the top, what is it, point zero something percent of earners in the States?
Yes, but that number is growing, especially with entrepreneurship and all these mechanisms. And even if you're not a coach or a service provider, creators are bringing in that much, like influencers are bringing in that much. So I think the entirety of the creator gig economy is exploding that number and making it a lot more reasonable. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I just wanna give honor to where honor's due, to whom it's due to, and, like, I love the work that you're doing. If you're working with, unfortunately, like, or I should say a demographic who is unfortunately, like, usually making super low income, like, whenever I wanna depress myself, look at, like, wealth gap or wealth disparity or income disparity, and it usually is, like, typical headliners, like, white wealth is 14 times as large or larger than, like, black wealth in the States. But then
Mhm.
among the black community, and among any community, honestly, like, women, especially women of color, just make a lot less, and so for you to take somebody or a group of people and do what you're doing and dispersing the kind of knowledge you are, like, thank you.
No, it's my life's work. It's so I just feel so grateful for it, and I'm just honestly grateful for the coaching industry. Like, I know a lot of people, they have lots of thoughts about the coaching industry, and I'm like, if it wasn't for the coaching industry, I would still be a social worker at Duke University making $2,500 a month, chained to my desk with a 3-hour commute that I took by bus. And so I am
Oh,
so yeah, I'm like,
woo.
I'll take all the ups and downs of the coaching industry any day than being a social worker at Duke University. And so, yeah, I'm just so grateful that I feel kinda how I talk about it with my clients is not everybody even knows this industry exists. I just feel lucky to even know about it, to be a part of it. A friend randomly sent me a podcast episode, as I was home for the holidays. She said, "Hey, I am listening to these podcasts. I think you would like it." Changed my life. So I just feel so grateful to be at the right time, at the right place, in this industry.
Have you by any chance read We Should All Be Millionaires by
Yes,
Rachel
that's by
Rodgers?
Rachel. Such a trailblazer. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I just finished reading that actually,
Mm.
just within the past month or so, and yeah, very eye-opening, very inspiring. I'm obviously a white woman, but just all of married to a black man, but all of
You
the
wanna be
input.
honest? You wanna be honest about this situation?
No, but
As a
it
son
was
of immigrants, I can honestly say, like, she's probably more black than I am on the
maybe.
inside. Like, let's just be honest and real here.
But either way, I mean, being a woman of color or not, but the book was just very just inspiring, like to dream bigger, to go higher, and you're doing that. You're pressing in and you're taking people up with you. So
Have you read this one? I'm halfway through.
No, I haven't.
Well, I like it. Here, you
Mm.
can screenshot it if you want.
Oh, okay, Stephen Chandler. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
say the title so people who are
Oh, the
listening.
title for people who are listening and not yet watching on YouTube is Stop Waiting for Permission by Stephen Chandler. The little quote here says, if you're tired of hitting roadblocks and want to dig deep to achieve your God given potential, today is the day. Harness your gifts, find your purpose, and unleash your personal genius.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Nice orange cover.
Okay, so take us back, DL. How did you said you listened to a podcast that changed your life and then like something clicked, or what did you decide I'm gonna do from here to make that shift?
And was this on the bus?
Yeah, well, it might as well have been. Yes, so I became a social worker. I love social work to this day. I have several clients who are therapists, social workers inside of that field, and they always use the word former. I'm like, I'm not former. I pay my dues just like you do. But yeah, and I use so much of my social work background and my work, but became a social worker and I got my master's degree right after. I went to UNC Chapel Hill, got a big old fancy master's degree. And I thought I would never have to worry about money again because I got my education and that's what I was told to do. And if I just get an education, I'll always be safe. And that was not the case. And I will never forget, I was outside of my class and I got a job offer, which I was so happy about, just thrilled about. I got a job offer from the Duke University and it was for $39,000 and my heart dropped to my stomach because I also had 6 figures of student loan debt. So
Oh,
I at least thought it would be in the 50s or something, and so I was so afraid of not having anything, I just took it, and then I realized with taxes and everything, my paycheck would be $2,500 a month. And so I decided to then start looking for side hustles. I had no other choice but to kind of supplement my income. And I tried a few out. I had an Etsy shop, I had a nanny agency. I also did network marketing. Yes, I tried a few things out. And with network marketing, it's very community oriented. And so that's how I got into podcasts. And I was in one company and a friend was in another company, but she was listening to this network marketing podcast and it was about how a network marketer became a coach. And I was like, "Oh, what's a coach? What's this? What's a life coach?" I had no idea. And then ever since that podcast episode, it changed my life. I would say I just like observed the coaching industry for a year. Like I was too afraid to post or buy anything or sign up for anything just for a year to be like, is this real? Like, can all of these people be making all of this money on the internet, like, is this real? And then eventually I got my first, coach, and I became a life coach. That was my first niche, and it was called the Busy Girls Club. My clients sometimes will find it and they'll send it to me like, Was this you?" And so, yeah, it was called the Busy Girls Club, and I was like, "I help ambitious women, manage their schedules and get things done," and I did that for a while. And then I started making good money. I started being able to match my salary off of that and bring in, which wasn't high to begin with, let's be clear, but I would bring in, $2,000 a month, and I was able to kind of tackle some of the debt. And my friends and family said, "How are you doing this? Like, you're kind of like a natural with sales online. Like, how are you doing this?" And so I said, "Oh, I'll help you." And then eventually enough people asked, and I said, maybe I should change my niche. And so I pivoted into business coaching. And then specifically, I found that I love sales calls. I love webinars. I made, with my audience size at the time, I was like making $300,000 with the audience size of 1,500 Instagram followers and maybe 300 email subscribers, like itty bitty, small, small. And I was killing it. I was just killing it. So I think that might be good at sales. I don't know though. Maybe I think I might have a knack for this. So then I pivot specifically from just like general business coaching. I pivoted into sales. And now this is all I do. I mainly focus on sales calls and webinars and launching. Those are my three areas of expertise.
Right. So anybody who's listening that struggles with or wants to just say, let's say, increase their sales on webinars, sales calls, and the third one was
Webinars and launching.
launching,
Mhm.
then they gotta check you out for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I specifically too focus on part-time hours, because I had that long commute, and the story behind that is I live in North Carolina, kind of live in the sticks here, and the transportation system obviously is not very robust. But my job was about 45 minutes away from where I lived. It was too expensive to move closer, and I had a car from college, and I didn't want to put wear and tear on it. Didn't want to pay for gas, and universities charge their employees to park their cars there. And that was a if they charged their employees like we had a choice, and this was, like, pre-COVID, and, like, you couldn't work from home, like, you had to go in the office every single day. I thought that was asinine, so it was $200 a month for parking, yes. It was insane. It was crazy, and so I remember talking to my then fiancé, now husband, and I was like, "Honey, I think I'm gonna take the bus," and so we mapped out, like, how I can take the bus, and of course, it took me, like, 2 hours to, like, transfer over, but I took the bus to work, so I have to leave my house at 6 a.m., and I wouldn't get home till 7 every single day, and I also built a business while working on that schedule, and so I got my business to $300,000 before I quit working very little hours, and so that's also what I specialize in as well.
What are
Wow.
people's impressions when you lead with that in any talk, and then you're like, "So what's your excuse?"
No, literally. Yeah, literally. But when I was going through it, I would be like, God, why? Why me? This is so terrible. But now, hindsight, I'm like, I have the perfect story. Nobody can tell me nothing. I'm a social worker. I never took a business class a day in my life. Like, and I know everyone says, like, if I could do it, you could do it too. But really, if I can do it, you can do it too. I promise you. So yeah, I like my story. People are like, "Oh, I don't have all of that. I can start a business." And that's what I want. I want people to be inspired and empowered and realize that their circumstances really don't have to get in the way.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
You built a business partly on a bus,
I
essentially.
feel
Yeah, that's awesome.
I feel like we need to say something about colleges, and, I was listening back in the day, we were thinking about buying a short-term rent or a property that we're gonna use for short-term rentals, and I was listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast, because if you haven't heard this study, you can find it if you Google something about it and their podcast. But there's a gentleman in some sort of foundation in DC doing research, and he decided to do this huge project where he was looking up the short-term and long-term income trajectory for college graduates of different majors at a ton of different colleges in the states. And so his whole point was to put a dollar sign amount of average value, or let's say lifetime value, on various majors. And I didn't go read the study, I just consumed the episode. But what struck me was that, of course, the hosts of that episode were like, okay, so like, what are the highest earning majors? And he like listed off a few like engineering type degrees and this sort of thing. But what I found, and it still is in my mind, is that the lowest earning majors tend to be in the humanities and like psychology, or what's that other one? Shoot, sociology, right? And
Mhm.
the host asked this question, like, if universities have access to this data, like maybe I don't know how they would collect it adjacently, maybe because they know about their alumni, or they know what kind of alumni are contributing how much to the various
Mm.
alumni associations, then why is it that universities are still promoting and pushing so many people into
Mm.
psych degrees and sociology degrees? Do you have any opinion on that? Because you experienced it too. I was a linguistics major, just so you know. I'm not preaching like from the
No, yeah.
engineering mountaintop here. I was a linguistics major, made
What
zero
languages
with
do
that
you
degree.
know? What languages do
Oh.
you know?
Languages do I know? Okay, I guess I chose it for a lifestyle, not for income. So I know Mandarin Chinese, because we lived there for like 11 years.
Mhm.
Maybe I racked up 14 years there.
You lived
Um,
there longer before you.
I'm upper intermediate in Spanish
Mhm.
right now. Would you
Mhm.
say so?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. Depends which Uber driver I'm talking to. They may or may not agree. And then I used to speak really good French because I used to work in
Yeah, I was
Paris.
gonna say tu parles français.
What? Un peu,
Yeah.
but not now because
Petit un peu, yeah.
Chinese kicked French out of my brain. Actually, I just have been lazy and not maintained it.
No, no, lovely, yeah. I dabble in French, I loved it, and I was actually in the new year, I was thinking about picking up French again, but I yeah, no, I think it's a beautiful language, a beautiful culture too, but I I have several thoughts. I used to work in higher ed, like, I worked at the university. I used to work in higher ed, and so I was on the student affairs side of all of it too, and I think my initial gut response to that study is like, "Well, why do the universities push it?" It's because we unfortunately need them. We need social workers, we need teachers, somebody has to do those jobs, and I think too, you described I'm gonna, like, a little technical here, but I think it's interesting. You describe like psychology and sociology, which require people say masters, I say doctorates. Like they require doctorates for you to, I think, make a sustainable living. Versus what's cool about social work is it's actually what's called a pre professional degree, meaning with just my BSW, I could go out and I don't technically need those other designations. And also, what's unique about social work and why I studied it is you then only have to do 1 year of a master's program, and then you have the equivalent of a psych PhD. They call that a terminal degree. And so I only had 5 years of school, including my bachelor's and my master's. And like my husband, he has his psych degree. He's eventually going to need his PhD, which is like 8 to 12 years. And so I would say I was actually smarter, right? In the grand scheme of the humanities, I was actually smarter. And two, they say in those fields, going back to like the doctorate, they say in those fields, just get into private practice. Private practice, and you can make six figures from private practice. It's just very taxing work. Like you would have to be back to back 8, 10 sessions a day with clients. You would have to find those clients, keep and retain those clients, get up on your certifications, your CEUs. It's very difficult to have a successful private practice. But I actually wanted to go get my PhD and I wanted to be a professor. That was the track that I was on. But I realized that it will probably take me well into my mid 30s to see the type of money that I wanted. But for me too, as a woman, I don't know when I'm gonna have children. We're not thinking about that anytime soon, but I definitely wanted the option to stay home if I ever wanted a family. So that was also some of my motivations as well.
Right.
Sounds like you'll have that option and then some.
Yeah,
Right?
more than that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
totally. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
All about options. Wow.
I don't want to just
Goodness.
ask all the random questions in my mind. Like I gotta let you ask something.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You started a nanny agency. as you were commuting to become a social worker, or you were a social worker commuting an hour and a half each way, and the first side hustle, or one of the first side hustles that you started, was a nanny agency. I just wanna know, where did you get these ideas from, and have you always had, like, a, mm, leaning towards entrepreneurship? Because that doesn't sound like the first or easiest kinda side hustle I would ever have thought of.
Yeah.
I had it in college. I had it in college, it was kind of all I knew. My mom is a teacher, she's a Montessori teacher, and so kids were I was gonna major in education, and then I was like, "Oh, I don't wanna be in the school system," and I wanted a more flexible career, so I chose social work. But yes, I was very familiar and kids were easy. I didn't have to think with kids, it wasn't anything super challenging, and so I had that as my background on what I did. So I nannied all throughout college, all throughout my master's. And so that was like the lowest hanging fruit to be like, oh, DL, call up some families and go work. So I would do overnights. That's what I would do. And so if, the family had to work, or it was typically like one spouse had to work and like the mom, like typically the husband had to go on a work trip, the mom wanted a set of hands. And so I could literally be paid to sleep, right? And then just make sure that the lunches were good and that the house was tidy. And then I would leave at 6 a.m. and go on the bus. And so I would do overnights. I would also do the weekends as well. So that was kind of what I did. And looking looking back, a lot of people ask me that, like, was there any writing on the wall that I was entrepreneurial? Entrepreneurship, the idea of it scared me. I was just like, "That's so risky, that's so scary, I'm not gonna be able to control my income," all the objections I now have to overcome in my own business. I had those same thoughts, and so I will never forget, in school, there was an entrepreneurship, like, contest, like a pitch contest, and they had all their projects in like the lobby of the main campus building. And I remember being after school, I mean like after class, walking around and being like, interesting, I can never see myself doing something like this. Look at me now, look at me now. And so yeah, I don't think it never bit me, but I will say I was always creative. I have a dance background, I danced my whole life. I have that like art, I can create something out of nothing. I was always a leader too. I was always running stuff. Like, a nerdy fact about me, I was a Girl Scout all the way up through graduation, and I got my gold award, which is like equivalent to the Eagle Scout award. And so like I was always running stuff, putting out some project. I won so many awards in college because I was always creating clubs. So I was always like producing something. I just didn't know you could be paid for it. That never occurred to me. But yeah.
Those were all the stepping stones to get you to where you are now, right? So, yeah,
Wow. This
very
is also
cool.
another random question sitting in my mind. As somebody who has tried to help family members, how successful were you in helping family members with the skill set that you currently have, sales? Because you mentioned somewhere, was it around when you were first matching your income as a social worker, but your family was asking you, how are you doing this? And you mentioned helping them, teaching them. How did that actually go?
Yeah, it was super casual. And it was specifically my mom. My mom's she's a teacher by trade, but she's a great interior designer. And so she would ask me, she was like, how can I get some clients? She actually got a few interior design clients. And she has like a little portfolio now. And so I helped her. Also, my cousin has like a car detailing business. And so he was like, how do I set up like my social media? How do I get clients outside of referral? So I helped him do that and he started getting some business. I had a friend, was a great videographer, so I helped her start to get some weddings booked. So yeah, nothing crazy, but it like for me it was very common sense, but for them they'll be like, "Whoa!" Like their minds would be blown. And it was fun. It was fun. It would just we would meet up for coffee or like a quick phone call and give them a few pointers. Have you struggled with that, helping family members?
Let's just say I have put plenty of time and money into helping family members, and I haven't been very good at it. So apparently I need to learn how to help the right way. Yeah. Really unfortunate that I couldn't help better.
I think the difference, though, is that it sounds like your family members were coming to you
Hey now,
for advice. Just saying
we're
that
gonna have to take a little intermission.
maybe maybe unsolicited
The
advice
co-host has gone
doesn't
off the
work.
rails. The co-host has gone off the rails. No, it's true.
Just a slight
It's
difference.
true.
Sure, yeah. I
To be helped, then they will seek out the help, right? And if they don't, then
Hey, so
moving
as
on.
you're listening to me and Dielle and Jamie talk right now, you probably already know that I was in China. This sounds like I'm going into like a pitch, to sell my program. I'm not though. I just realized I have that tone. But I was in China for like 12 years. I did help my family then. Like I
Mhm.
had my mom and my sister both move to China. And back then, like Jamie and I were running a tutoring business. Like we had it super structured. It was not just
Mm.
one-on-one, it was like 1-on-3, 1-on-4. And we were making lots of money. And we franchised that out for like
Yeah,
25% commission too to
yeah.
like a couple other people. But then I helped my mom and my sister both do the same thing. So I have helped family
You have. You
because
have.
they both went there, like, and made a good amount of money, and I
Yeah.
guess, like, my sister now, she lives in Portugal. She probably wouldn't have gone over there if it wasn't for saving up all that cash in China and then
Yeah.
exiting there, so I'm
Wow.
Yeah.
ran
You did.
random story.
No, that's
Random story.
amazing.
Those were the good old days. The good old days. Please tell us, what was one time as you were building your business where you almost, like, quit and, like, gave it all up to go find, I don't know, social work again or a different job that's along that trajectory?
It's actually a concept I teach my clients now. So it was maybe I think I might have had, like, 3 0K months in a row. So, like, my 3rd month, like, not bringing it in my business, and my business was very inconsistent, and I say, like, that's probably the hardest season in business. P people say the hardest season in business is when you're at 0. I actually think when you're in between your goal because you're like, "Okay, I shouldn't quit because I have been successful in the past, but I'm currently not successful right now." I think that's the hardest part in business where you have the past, but the future is looking a little bleak. And so it was then where I was like, okay, if money, I made money before, but this is my third 0K month. Should I call it quits? And there's this like giant, after, being dropped off at the bus, I had to walk up like this giant hill. And I had like thrift
In the
store.
snow.
Oh yeah, it just gets worse, right? Like in the snow, rain, sleet, yeah. Um, but it never snows in North Carolina. It snows every 3 years. But yeah, and I would have like these flats with like holes in them because I didn't want to spend money on shoes or rather like buy coaching programs. And so I remember like walking up in the snow, sleet, or the imaginary snow and sleet, and what felt like snow and sleet, and being like I should just quit. And then a thought came to my head and said, DL, give it a year. How about you actually give it 5? You can quit after 5 years. And then, like, after you really give it your all, because if you're trying something every day for 5 years, like, then sure, you can hang up the towel. And then 2 months later, COVID happened, sent all of us home to work from home. I got a lot of time back. I hit my first Yeah, I hit my first 20K month, and then it just kept growing and growing from there. And so like, when they say you typically quit premature, like, right before your big break, I love that feeling now whenever I'm like, "I can't take any more," like, I'm gonna take myself out. I love that feeling. Now I have the awareness to be like, "Oh, DL, you're right there. You're right there. Give it one more go." I felt that way with ads. All 2023 was like, "Ads are dumb. I don't like ads. They're too complicated. What are we doing all of this for? Terrible, terrible." And then this year, I was like, "Okay, what if I do something differently?" So I'm doing I'm not gonna have the right terminology, you all would have the better terminology, but, I've been calling them Russell Brunson webinars, where it's basically just a live webinar. So instead of sending the traffic to an evergreen funnel, it's a live webinar for me, and I do it every 2 weeks. That changed my business. I was like, "This is actually what I wanna do," and I'm so glad I didn't quit on ads. I'm so, so glad. So, I like that
Yay.
feeling now. Yeah, I'm super happy with our results, but now I know whenever I feel that way, give it a few more months and the big break is coming.
Mm,
Love it.
that's so good. I'm curious, can I ask how long had you been making money before that 3 months of zeros hit?
I would maybe it was so inconsistent. Like, it was right at the beginning of my business, so I would get, like, a $500 client there, a $2,500 painful client there, and then I would go months into getting no sales, and then I would go and I would get another $2,500 client, and then, like, a few $500 client, and then I would go into another so, like, it was that, just, like, literally trying to push the boulder up the hill to get something going.
Right, right.
I feel like if you haven't already, that quote about, like, whatever you said about you didn't wanna buy flats, instead you, like, spent your money on coaching courses, I feel like that is very Instagrammable.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I didn't buy any money on clothes because I was like, "I hate this job anyways, I don't have to impress them." I was like, "I was not trying to look cute for nobody in that office." I was like, "They just need a I need a clothes on my body," and I had them on, and I wanted to but especially with $2,500, I had to squeeze out every dime, and I was like, "I'd rather, I could spend $100 on a new pair of shoes, or I could spend $100 on a course that could get me out of here."
Yeah, they always say choose your hard, right?
Hmm,
Like,
very
either
true.
way, it's gonna be hard, but pick which one you want, right?
I will say I'll give one strategy, one mindset. I would say a lot can change when you know how to do a sales call. A lot can change. That was that part where I was doing the 20K month. That's when I finally clicked into, oh, I have to do the sales call this way. I have to do it that way. Oh, I need to say this. Learning sales conversations like changed my life. So that would be number one. And then number two, time isn't the problem. So if you're like, "Oh, I don't have enough time, and that's the reason why I'm not doing anything." It could be, learning French. It could be anything you wanna, give your time to. Time isn't the problem, you are. You're the problem.
Oh,
Oh, ouch, ouch. That'll hurt. That's like the stab, but,
why are you gonna
the
go ahead and
hurt's so
talk to her why are you
good.
gonna talk to her like that? Come on now.
Well, I mean, yeah, with my story, I was like, "Oh, it wasn't because I just like everybody was like, 'How am I supposed to do this?'" It wasn't time, it was me, and then once I got me figured out, time didn't matter. If you can figure out the internal issue within you, time will never become a factor.
Hmm,
Wow.
that's true. I was just listening to Jim Rohn from well, obviously from back in the day, and he was talking about getting rid of, like, your weak older self that's, like, bound by fear and believes that by putting something off until, like, you know, whenever, it'd be easier to do then because of all these excuses, and he's like, "No." And
Mhm.
I'm not doing it justice, but I was listening to it, and when you said, "The problem is you," that came to mind.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we all know entrepreneurship is nothing but identity work over and over and over again.
Mm.
What does that mean?
Identity, my definition of that is the thoughts you think about yourself regardless of the circumstance. So, like, when I was a social worker, I had to cosplay as like a successful coach in my mind in order to do the actions of a successful coach before I was a successful coach because that was the identity that I was trying to cultivate. Even though that wasn't my circumstance, those were the thoughts that I wanted to think about myself, right? That I'm a successful coach, even though that's not my current reality. And so, yeah, it's identity work. It's thinking about what are your thoughts about yourself regardless of the things around you. And so I did that work all the way up to 1,000,000 and now it's a little bit more challenging, but now I'm trying to think like, "DL, you can make $5,000,000. What would be the $5,000,000 version of you? Not just the $1,000,000, but the $5,000,000 version of you, even though that's not in my bank account right now." So what are the thoughts you think about yourself regardless of the circumstance?